right now. Bang. All right, really am excited here. We've got Kevin
Great.
to kick us off. Kevin, go ahead and take it away.
Great. Yeah, thank you, everyone. We appreciate you taking the time to attend today. We're pretty excited about Office 365 as well, and as the title says, coming into our discussion here, we think about Office 365, and the first thing that comes to most people's minds is email, and that's what they think they want to use it for. That's what they think it mostly revolves around. But as we've discussed, it's also access to the full Office apps and different productivity tools, including business intelligence and other communication and file storage services. So there's a lot to Microsoft Office 365, and we're excited to talk about it a little bit. I want to go through the agenda here, and one thing real quick, like Kim mentioned, is at any time go ahead and put a question into the chat window. We're going to be monitoring that and trying to answer those on the fly. Our goal today is it's just to give a brief intro of Office 365. We're not going to go into a lot of detail, but then we're going to go into a panel discussion where we're going to get to some of the insights that we have as a team into Office 365. And then we'll wrap up our discussion by talking about what you can do next if you're interested in exploring Microsoft Office 365 as an option. All right. First of all, we're just going to start, again, big picture here. Basic definition of Office 365. It's a subscription service that includes access to, of course, the Office applications. That's your Excel, your Word, your Outlook, PowerPoint, OneNote, Access, the whole Office package. But it also has other productivity tools that you can use, including things like SharePoint, Skype for Business, and even collaboration like through Yammer and some of the other tools included. So yes, it does email, of course it does. It provides class email, but it has a greater breadth of functionality, security, and controls than you'll get through some of the other email options out there like a Gmail or a Yahoo Mail. And we're going to go into some of those questions as we go forward. So yeah, we talk about what else does Office 365 do. Well, at the core, we also have the full access to the Office apps. You're going to be on the latest and greatest version, so everybody who's in Office 365 utilizing those apps is going to be using Microsoft Office 2016. There's a lot of improvements and functionality there that you can benefit from. You can install it on up to 5 different devices, so this includes your tablets and your phones. What this is going to give you is a unified experience between your desktop, maybe your laptop if you use that for traveling, or a tablet, or even a smartphone, mobile device of some other sort to do your work and have it all accessible through the different devices. Of course, communication and collaboration is a big part of it too. You have everything from instant messaging to different audio and video options for online meetings. You can do web conferencing. You can actually do a meeting broadcast up to 10,000 attendees. It's a pretty powerful tool when you consider it in that sense. There's plenty of collaboration tools utilized through SharePoint, social networking, corporate social networking through Yammer, and then generally just cross-application collaboration. You're storing a file in OneDrive and you want to edit it at the same time as one of your other team members or multiple team members. You can do that. The tools are provided through Office 365. Of course, you have storage there in OneDrive, and then not really thought about as much. You have some advanced analytics through Microsoft's Power BI and through the Delve Analytics tool. Power BI, of course, is going to give you a lot of detail about your business and insight into your business, as well as Delve, which can give you insights into your personal activities. How interesting to be able to learn how much time you spend writing emails in a given day or working after hours. There's a lot of different information that you can get through Delve that can improve how you do your job and how you do your business. And with that, we're going to go ahead and move on to our panel discussion. We have two great people here today to present for us. First, we have Fred Limmer. He's our practice manager here at Interdyne BMI. He's consulted and provided IT services to clients, both large and small, in virtually every vertical for almost 20 years. With over 10 years of experience managing his own consulting firm, Fred has developed a breadth of business management knowledge, and he brings a forward-thinking methodology to IT planning and practice. His primary focus is in understanding the business needs of our customers and clients, because knowing how to best spend your dollars on technology is just as important as the technology itself. We also have Eric De Oliveira. Eric is a senior network engineer with Interdyne BMI. He has over 20 years of experience in IT and specializes in messaging and collaboration systems, including Exchange and Skype for Business. He's migrated several large organizations across multiple Exchange and communication platforms, and has also successfully migrated literally thousands of individual users between different messaging platforms. And I notice in the slide here, it's kind of amusing. I forgot to do some editing on Eric's brief bio there. So according to this, he has the exact same experience as Fred, but we want to welcome Fred and Eric to the discussion. And thanks, guys. Why don't you go ahead and say hi?
Hi, Kevin.
Hey, Fred.
Hello.
Yeah, you didn't realize you had the exact same experience as Fred, did you?
Hopefully I can use that to my advantage next time I get my review.
Right. Good thoughts. So, guys, I want to start the discussion just with a basic question. You know, we talked about what most people think about when they hear Office 365. I'd like to hear what you guys think about primarily when you hear Office 365.
I'll kind of start that off. You know, there's a lot of different levels to 365 and what you can get from it, and it's all very a la carte and pick and choose, and you don't have to use all of it. You can use certain individual pieces of it. But Office 365 from the 10,000-foot view, it's for anybody that doesn't really understand what it is, it's a subscription service that's provided from Microsoft that includes access to Office applications like Word and Excel, but also to services based on Microsoft systems like Exchange for email and calendar and contact management, and so those kind of things. And most people are familiar with that. Exchange is pretty deeply embedded in the business world, so most people understand what that is. So this is an Exchange system in Microsoft's data center that they're basically renting access to customers to, so you can get email and share your calendars and all that kind of stuff. Productivity services like those provided to business customers and home customers too. I mean, you can set up a personal system if you like, but probably the thing that people mostly associate with it is the business class email that gives you a lot more manageability, a better, more professional look, because you can get fred.limmer@internetbmi.com instead of fredlimmer1862 at yahoo.com for your email address. It doesn't quite have as much of a professional ring to it. But significantly better control and management of that, in addition to the professionalism. To get down to a little bit lower, more specifically, so you can get access to Office applications that we use every day: Excel, Word, Outlook, PowerPoint, things like that. You do get to install those on up to 5 devices. They license the application to the user. So if you are a user with a desktop, a laptop, a tablet, maybe an iPad or something like that, that one Office 365 license will allow you to have that app on all those different platforms, and they'll be synchronous, so you can use them separately. There's also online versions of them if you are at a computer that's not yours, that may not have the application installed. There's a somewhat slimmed down online version that runs in the web browser, so you can actually open up files and look at them and work in them and things like that. Another specific item, Skype for Business. A lot of people are probably familiar with Skype, which is the kind of digital internet phone system that Microsoft acquired years and years ago. But this is a business version that has it records all your instant messages in an archive. It gives you secure communication between other people in your company and people outside of your company for communication and collaboration. It does cross-platform working as well, so it pulls your Outlook calendar in, and you can click on links from Outlook and make phone calls and calendar entries, things like that, through the application. Also offers instant messaging, let's say, outside the organization, things like audio, video for online meeting and web conferencing. Kevin kind of mentioned that. You also get access to intranet, SharePoint. You may have heard of SharePoint. SharePoint is a kind of a backbone technology for Microsoft that allows for the storage of data in raw formats like doc files and Excel files, things like that, but also more complex structured data, like databases and tables and things like that you can build reports, things like that on. OneDrive cloud storage, so kind of a file system in the cloud that you can store your data in. And then some more advanced tools like Power BI and Delve for advanced analytics and things like that. So there's a lot of functionality out there that will contribute to the business. It has a lot of value, and you may not see that on the surface, but if you get into a CIE demo or some more specific demonstration, then you can see the real power behind tools in the background. So there's a lot of business value in the platform and the different tools and functionality.
Great. Eric, what are your first thoughts when somebody mentions Office 365 to you?
I mean, well, Fred kind of covered a lot there, but as far as when I think of Office 365, since my background is in messaging and collaboration, most of my thoughts revolve around email, what we can do with email, what we can do with the other tools that will integrate into our email very simply or without being super complex. If any of you have ever had an Exchange system on premises, and you've had either Office Communicator or Skype for Business or Link or Jabber or any of the other instant messaging type programs that are out there, you may be aware of the complexity of getting those integrated, or you can show presence within email or within SharePoint or with any of the tools. But with Office 365, that's all there ready to go. So when you're in your email and you type in your email address for your coworker, Fred's email, right there I see with a red dot or a green dot or a yellow dot or a gray dot whether Fred's away, available. I see his availability, and right from within there I can click and send him an instant message, or right-click if we're using the Skype phone system, Skype for Business for phone, I can right-click and call him right from there on my system. And that's when I think of Office 365, I think of that. My email is now simple. I can have a ton of it without taking up my own storage. You know, I don't have to have a server on premises if I don't want to, and all these other tools integrate very easily and seamlessly into that from the get-go. So that would be my answer to that question.
Wonderful.
Okay. I did want to throw one other thing in there, Kev.
Yeah, go for it.
You know, one of the big differentiators for Office 365 versus an on-prem system like Exchange that you have a server for, you know, that server has to be maintained. It has to be upgraded. It has to have maintenance done on it, things like that. So there's definitely a lot of money that you have to put into keeping that server running, aside from the power and air conditioning for it. But it can be very expensive to maintain your own servers and your own equipment. So you know, that's the CapEx model, the capital expenditure. You know, buying the server, buying the software, buying the licenses, you know, those kind of things. One of the biggest benefits of 365, and what I really think about, is moving that CapEx expense into an OpEx, where you're, instead of outlaying $50,000 to upgrade your Exchange server and buy new hardware and stuff like that, you just move that into 365 and you just pay a low monthly fee for it. So now you're in an expense mechanism versus an investment, and you know, that helps a lot of times with cash flow for organizations, especially smaller ones or nonprofits that may have trouble, you know, just plunking down a big pile of cash to upgrade their Exchange server. So you know, I think probably the first thing I think about 5 is I think about saving money and smoothing out the outlay for that, because you're going to pay for it one way or the other. But paying for it on a monthly subscription model is a lot smaller pill to swallow, and a lot of businesses find that's a lot easier to manage on the cash flow.
Yeah, definitely, and you know, cash flow is always an important consideration for businesses, and if you can defer some of those capital expenses out over time, that can be a big benefit. So as a business, as I'm looking at Office 365, you know, why should I consider it? You know, what other benefits, other than some of the few that we've mentioned here, are we going to find for my business?
Well, I'll answer that one to start there, Kevin. So I'll just start with an example. Dealing with a large government organization, with the state government organization, and within that government organization they have several departments. You know, every state has a Department of Transportation, a Department of Social Services, or you know, endless. And this particular state, all their email and everything was spread out across just different systems, ranging from Exchange, Lotus Notes, SendMail, you know, just you name it, they had it. So supporting that infrastructure, they had in the neighborhood of 120 servers, and at least 20 engineers, and just countless drives of space just handling this email. Over the course of a couple of years, I mean, it was a state, so there was over 100-something thousand employees. We were able to migrate all of those users over to Office 365. We're able to get them set up with those systems, decommission all those hundreds of servers, and the staffing model went from having 30 plus engineers supporting that to 5 engineers supporting that. And the only reason it was 5 instead of 2 was because there was a need for an on-prem Exchange for a while, for a continued while Microsoft was getting their certification for HIPAA, and which has already been taken care of. They are now HIPAA certified, but they weren't originally. So like the anything that had to do with medical records had to stay on-prem while that was happening. So as you can see right there, in that instance, granted that was a very large scale, there was a significant monetary savings.
Right.
The return on investment was almost immediate. The other reason was their ability to collaborate within the organization with each other. They were able to simply email, simply IM each other using Skype for Business, things like that.
So not only did they reduce infrastructure costs, they reduced full-time employee costs, and got better performance in the long run. And I think it's great that you give a large organization like a government, state government, as an example, and knowing that the tools can scale to that level. That's great. Fred, how about you? What would you recommend when people are considering Office 365? You might be muted, Fred.
I'm sorry about that. I sure was. I'm going to go at it at the same angle that Eric did with an example. So they're always easy to follow and associate with. But I'm going to scale it down a little bit. I'm not going to go to a massive state agency. Let's go down to a smaller organization. So one customer in particular that we moved to 365 recently is a manufacturing company that manufactures lighting equipment for a number of different areas. So they had an on-prem Exchange server. It was aging. It was on hardware. It was very old, and they were looking at about $40,000 to get a new server, get new operating system licensing, storage, backup, upgrade the license for Exchange to the current version, migrate it, do everything. I mean, they're looking at $50,000 to get that in place. So they looked at their options and they decided to go into 365. So they moved into 365, and immediately they had the benefits of being in that infrastructure that they were seeing. They had much larger mailbox sizes because they didn't have to keep dumping mail to get under storage. We had higher availability because their old server was aging and was having some problems. Now email is always available, and so not only did they get improvements on what they had, but now they also had a whole plethora of additional services available to them from their 365 licensing. They started using Skype for Business for instant messaging, and they shut down an old application that provided similar functionality. They tied that into their phone system. They started using OneDrive for storage. They started using some of the advanced features of Exchange that weren't working for their other organization. So they made this move. They saved a ton of cash to make this change, and they got not only much improved service but additional services that didn't cost them anymore. That they were able to start using, and because of that, they definitely got a quick return, and they collaborate easier now. They work quicker, faster, and just they function a lot better, and they're extremely happy in that platform. One other example I wanted to toss out real quick was another manufacturing wholesaler. They make a number of different things, but they were in acquisition mode, and they bought two companies. They were looking to buy in a third, and they had fourth and fifth in the plan, and they went through the first one and got halfway through the second one. They realized that what we're doing isn't working. This is too difficult to get these other companies involved with us, and we got to do email, we got to set up different subscriptions, we got to do all this kind of stuff, set up alternate email domains, deliveries, things like that. So we moved them into a 365 scenario where now when they bring on a company, they just add those users to 365, and they're very quickly and easily able to adjust and add new users and set things up, and we have directory synchronization and things like that going that allow them to just do one quick setup on a user, and then bam, they've got, this whole other organization is now part of their email infrastructure. So they found it much easier to bring in and acquire other organizations using that as their platform instead of something else.
Oh.
So.
Yeah, great examples. I appreciate that. So it sounds like you have clients who, one, just going forward, overall cost savings by less setup costs required when adding users. Very good for companies that's acquiring. And then I thought it was neat that you mentioned a client who has probably started with email and then started looking beyond that to what else Office 365 could deliver to them. That's a really neat example. With some of these examples, we've seen the impact here, but what's the most significant business improvement you've seen from someone adopting Office 365?
So the immediate improvement, obviously, over the, outside of the, yes, now I can have a 50 gig mailbox instead of 50 meg, is business continuity. And having your email in Office 365 simplifies your business continuity to the point of, oh, I don't really have to back up Exchange servers anymore and worry if these Exchange servers crash. That is really huge. Having dealt with disaster recovery and restoring large Exchange databases and things like that, you just can't underestimate the immediate improvement you see going to 365, where all of your email is on Microsoft servers, and if something happens to server A, server B starts working right away and you're not worrying about it. The loss of your data is pretty close to impossible at this point. I mean, if multiple servers crash, your data is somewhere and it is backed up and it is back online fairly quickly. This is, again, can't understate how much better it is that you don't have to worry about backing up your own Exchange servers and your own email data. That is all handled on the back end by Microsoft.
So why don't you just elaborate a little bit on that, Eric, about why it's so available? So it's still on a server somewhere, and what if that server at Microsoft crashes? Why is it not? Well, how does it restore so quickly?
So it's while your email is on a server somewhere, it's not just on one server somewhere. It's on multiple servers spread across multiple huge data centers across the United States and abroad, depending on your business. Certain business, they can't be abroad, so that you can make sure that you are on servers that there is none. But you have a data center in Chicago, a data center in Ashburn, Virginia, another data center on the West Coast, and one in Texas, and there's data centers all over the United States. So if Chicago gets hit by I don't know, a blackout the way Detroit did 10 years ago or 15 years ago or whatever it was, where the whole area around Detroit and south had no power, you're still going to have access to your email if you're in Texas, because the data center in Ashburn, Virginia, or Texas, or the West Coast, whichever answers first, is going to have your email there ready for you to continue working. And it's a continuous. It's redundant. It's redundant across all the things, and it's a continuous copy. So as soon as your email hits your server that you're always hitting in the north, it's instantly copied to the other servers based off of logs, and
that's amazing. I mean, we take a lot of email for granted just being there, and we've had pretty reliable systems in the past, but knowing that it's safe and you have that business continuity, that's great. Fred, how about you?
Well, just to kind of build on what Eric was saying is I'm a little bit more familiar with the Azure infrastructure than Eric is, and I know that Office 365 just rides on top of Azure. So your email data, for example, is on one server per zone per data center in the U.S. So there are 3 zones. So in each data center, your stuff is on 3 different servers, and then there are 9 data in the U.S. So cumulatively, your data is duplicated on about 24 or 27 servers. So the chance of that going offline is pretty darn small, and it's a constant too. So it's not that if you need to switch over, you'll lose an hour or something like that. It's an instantaneous switch, so it's completely balanced. So they do have a bulletproof system in place, essentially. Kind of building on the business continuity, we have one customer in particular that's here in Houston. Houston is a little bit prone, as you may know from recent events, to have some serious storms and some flooding and hurricanes and tornadoes and things like that. So this particular organization, their headquarters is here, but only roughly half of their workforce is here. So the other half is scattered around the country. So when their aging email system was coming up for upgrade, renewal, whatever we were thinking about, their primary goal was to not have that in their building. They wanted to move their voice out. They wanted to move their email and communications out because they want the entire workforce in the organization to be dependent on their building standing here in Houston, having power, having internet, and not being flooded and functioning for the company to be able to operate. So we moved their mail into 365. We moved their Skype link into 365. We moved their voice out into that as well. So if their building here in Houston goes down, they lose their internet, they lose their power. Everybody else outside is still able to function. So the sales guy in Los Angeles, or the warehouse in Miami, or the regional manager in Chicago, they can all still get to their email. They can still get phone calls. They can still get to their calendar and see where their meetings are, no matter what state their building here is in. So that's where you get into the business continuity. If you have a loss to a site or a loss to a building or a loss of service, you're still able to function, and that was their primary driver for moving into that platform, was being able to function if they had a serious event.
That's great. You mentioned voice here, and that's actually one of the things a lot of people are talking about with Office 365 lately, is the new enterprise voice capabilities that are available. What can you tell us about that? And do I still need a traditional phone service or on-prem infrastructure if I switch to Office 365?
The answer is no. With the new E5 and the way that Microsoft has their voice technology set up, you can literally get rid of all of your existing infrastructure or keep parts of it depending on how you want to do the setup. You have full functionality of phone right now. The last piece that Microsoft was working on was the hunt groups and the like, if any of you use those. But those are now currently available. So you can have you can have a traditional phone. There are a list of maybe of phones that are compatible with it. The usual suspects of Cisco phones, things like that. Or you can have your headset plugged right into your computer, like I use. actually called into this right now using a Skype for Business, a headset on my laptop. So straight any functionality you currently have within your current voice system, including unified messaging, you can also get in Office 365. Bring users into a conversation, call forwarding, call simulcall, where it calls your desk and your cell phone at the same time. All those are available within the platform.
Great. Fred, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, whenever I look at a problem or solution, I try to look at it with a business eye. Having been in business for 10 years, running my own company, it's the first question I ask is, where is the value to the business? And I know there are a ton of companies out there that have a phone system that they probably bought 20 years ago. And that poor little hamster in that wheel is probably nearing the end of his road, and they're looking at looking down the barrel of a big upgrade overhaul. That so for them, just being able to move into 365 for voice, for example, they're looking at saving potentially tens of thousands of dollars, just off of that, just not having to buy hardware or having to lease it from the phone company or whatever arrangement you may have. You're looking at significant savings on the upgrade for that. And the Office 365 system, you never have to upgrade it. Well, you don't have to pay to upgrade it because Microsoft maintains that on their own. So you get a whole new fresh phone system, using current technology, VoIP, all those kind of things, without having to foot the big bill to upgrade, that monster in your closet back there. And when comparing with on-prem, you can easily spend $20,000 to $30,000 on a phone system if you're getting a new Watsu or a similar system where you got handsets you got to put out. You may have to update some wiring. You're gonna have to get new switches and phones and things like that. Easily $30,000, $40,000. Where if you look at moving into 365 for that, you're gonna have some setup fees, but it's not going to be anywhere near that. You're going to be in the couple $1,000s more than likely. And then for the phones, you can buy $20 headsets that you plug into laptops, or you can get desk phones for anywhere from $80 to a couple $100, depending on how fancy you want them. You can get 360-degree conference room cameras for $5,000-$6,000 if you want them. But don't really. If you don't need them, you don't need them. So you can spend as little or as much on it as you want, pretty much. So there's definitely a lot of great benefits to that, on the pocketbook side of things.
Okay, and there's a lot of voice over IP is not new, and there's a lot of options out there. How does Office 365 compare?
Well, one of the cool things about 365 is it's very straightforward on pricing. So you pay for your E5 SKU and you pick your call plan. There's two call plans. There's a national and an international call plan. You pick them. You don't have to keep track of minutes. You don't have to worry about overages or anything like that. It's very simple. There are a lot of VoIP systems out there that have very complicated plans, or they have certain limits on minutes and whatnot that you have to worry about. You don't have to worry about that with 365, and it's like a straightforward pricing. It incorporates with everything, in ways that other VoIP providers can't. If you're, for example, if you're using CRM Online and Office 365, you get the voice functionality for Skype for Business enabled in 365. Now your CRM Online is talking to your phone, and your Outlook is communicating with the phone system, you're getting voicemails in your inbox and all that kind of stuff. You can't do that with a lot of third-party VoIP systems. You just don't have that rich level of integration.
So additional functionality as it works with the other Office features, and I'm hearing more predictable costs, really, which obviously is going to help for budgeting. That's good info. So we've talked about some of the features of Office 365 and what it can do for you, but let's get a little more obscure. Can you guys share some of the little-known features or benefits that you think it's important for people to hear about?
So I'm going to kind of have two pieces of this. First is some of the security aspects of it, and then the other is e-discovery. So e-discovery, if you're unfamiliar with that, it's anything that has to do with legal hold on documents, which can come in various forms. If you're regulated by the government, you're regulated by SOX and other regulatory commissions to be able to produce email for X amount of years. Within Office 365, you have full e-discovery capabilities with an e-discovery admin that you can assign. So I don't know if any of you guys have ever had to deal with finding emails that came from person A to person B, internal or external, for the last 5 years. But if you don't have e-discovery tools, that is a serious undertaking. And Office 365, you can have those tools available to you. And then on the security side, there is built-in scanning for viruses and spam as soon as you go to Office 365. So if you're using any devices like a Barracuda or a Symantec mail security for exchange, or any of those spam filters / virus filters, those are already provided by Microsoft, so that is no longer necessary. You can also do policy-based encryption, as well as DLP, or data loss prevention. These options are also available. So if you deal with anything that can have credit card numbers, social security numbers, things like that, you have to protect that data, especially if you're dealing in some of the states like California and others that have really stringent laws when emailing protected information like Social Security or any type of medical information. You have that ability within Office 365 to easily, add on to your subscription to include data loss prevention and outbound security-based, policy-based encryption, even if you're dealing with someone who doesn't have encrypted emails. So you're able to communicate with someone. Say you have a customer that has a Gmail account and you need to have encrypted communication with them. Well, that user, through Office 365, you can send encrypted email to that user, and then that user would be able to click on the link and then go and see that encrypted email, as opposed to sending a direct email to them, which the only encryption would be based on the communication between the two systems. Once it's inside their inbox, it would not be encrypted at that point. So you have those options. So those are pretty huge.
So the minute you get into Office 365, you're already more secure.
Exactly, and the ability to have TLS communications between any partners. So you're able to, without certificates, have secure communications. I don't know if any of you have dealt with certificates on handheld devices. They tend to be all time consuming for your help desk. Your help desk will you typically spend a lot of hours helping people get certificates onto their iPhones or their Blackberries or whatever device they're using. And with this system, you can have that encrypted email without having to put that certificate on the device itself.
Great. Fred, what do people need to know about?
Well, I wanted to say on e-discovery, Eric mentioned the compliance requirements, things like that, but really, if you've ever wanted to find an email, even if it's to make sure that you told a customer that it was going to be X amount of dollars and they said you didn't say that, just trying to even find just a regular business need email is just incredibly painful and without 365. And we actually had an incident where um, uh, we had to find all emails to a particular or to a group of email addresses during a time frame when we were dealing with something, even here at BMI, and it took a week of hard searching to pull all that out. That was before we moved into 365. So that definitely, I can't understate how much e-discovery is helpful for just general operational items like that. As far as my thing, little known feature of 365 is Azure Active Directory. A lot of people don't know what that is. They don't know what's out there. They don't know that they need it or what it does. It is essentially a single sign-on or an SSO system for Office 365 and all the Microsoft applications and systems, but also it gives you SSO with over 2,000 other applications out there, like Salesforce, for example. And the big benefit of SSO is you only have one username and one password to access all your different services. So you log into your desktop at work with j.smith and monkey12 is your password, and you can log into 365 with that. You can log into Salesforce with it. You can log into Sugar or anything else, business applications out there. You can use that same username and password. And if you change your password on your local computer, a lot of you, I'm sure, have password policies to deal with. That change is immediately reflected in those other applications. So then you don't have to keep track of different passwords and change them in multiple places and things like that. It's all centrally located in the Azure AD. Azure AD also gives you two other nice benefits. The first one is user self-password reset. So if you've ever been into a Microsoft system or a lot of other systems that if you forget your password, you go to change it and it texts you a code, and you have to put that code in, that's self-password reset. So when you set up your 365, you get your mobile number, it goes in there. If you forget your password, you tell it, I forgot, and it'll send you that text, you reset it, and you're back in business without having to call into the help desk and open a ticket and do those kind of things. So that's really nice. The third one I want to touch on real quick, multi-factor authentication. That's part of that same system where you go to log in, and there's some kind of challenge, some kind of prompt to give a second piece of credential, and that may be that number in a text message. It may be a phone call, maybe a challenge key response where you have to type in a number or something like that. But that makes a huge increase in security for that session and that connection. And those are some of the things you can get from Azure AD that you can't, or that most people don't really know about or don't really totally understand. So.
Good stuff. That single sign-on sounds pretty powerful. I appreciate you sharing about that. That was something I didn't really know very well. We've talked about Office 365. We know that there's some powerful benefits, but the real question I think a lot of people are asking is how do I get into Office 365? Is it as easy as pressing a button? And once I do get in, can I set everything up myself? Do I need to work with a partner, or how do I make this happen?
So migrating to Office 365, there are several different ways that you can accomplish this. There's tools out there that can be used. There are tools that we utilize as well for a standard migration or an advanced migration. One of the typical ways is, especially if you're on the larger side, 50 to 100, or medium size, sorry, to larger with thousands, you definitely want to be in a hybrid situation where you continue to have your on-prem Exchange, you migrate to Exchange Office 365 from that Exchange, and you keep your on-prem for management. You decommission all your Exchange servers except for one. That is a very is one of the typical ways of doing this migration. You know, is it as easy as pressing a button? Probably not. Can it be done in a manner with the least amount of impact to your users, which is typically the most important question, and that is an absolute yes. When we do a migration of your messaging and collaboration system to Office 365, our goal is to have the least amount of impact to you and to your customers, and even more so to your clients if you are, you know, we don't want you to have lost opportunity. We don't want there to be a loss of opportunity cost to your business because you are in the midst of a migration. That is not what we're aiming for when doing a migration. Fred?
Great. Yeah, no, that's good. Fred?
And regarding some of those tools, you know, obviously anytime you're using a tool for something, those tools will have some costs. You know, for example, the standard migration, you know, that Eric was talking about, which is probably the least expensive tool that we have. It's a couple dollars per mailbox, but you know, you are looking at a 4 to 8, possibly 24-hour window where you're not flowing email in and out, and email could potentially go in one box instead of the other. You know, but that one's very inexpensive. But you can go up to, you know, some of the more advanced tools. Obviously, they're going to be a little bit more expensive, but they're going to be much easier on the users. They'll make all the changes themselves. You'll have you can even get to a 0 downtime scenario with one of the particular tools that we use. So, you know, really on the cost side of things, it's how much can you take for downtime? Can you take an hour? Can you take a couple hours? Can you have no downtime? And you know, that really plays into the amount of money you can budget for doing the migration part of it. So,
You know, Fred, if I have an IT guy on staff, you know, is this easy enough for them to do, or how does that work?
well, you know, the real problem with setting it up, it has to be set up right. And you know, if you don't do all the pieces and you don't get them all set up right in the first place, undoing it later is very painful. So can you do it with your own IT guy? You probably can, but I would be very, you know, remiss to recommend that to anybody that's not familiar with it, because you know, get the directory synchronization, the ADFS set up, getting the subscription created correctly to allow you to expand on it later and add things like Azure or CRM Online or other services. It really has to be done right in the first place. You know, we've had instances where we've come behind customers that have started that and didn't know where to go, and you know, it cost them a lot to kind of go back and fix it and line it all back up. So you can do it, but I'd recommend you seeking a partner to help you with the transition, at least advise you on what your options are.
Great. No, that's good information, and kind of help you get off on the right foot rather than causing some issues down the road. I want to thank everyone for their time today, Fred and Eric. There's been a lot of good information here. I know we're approaching the close of the time. You know, we learned a lot about Office 365 and what it can do to you. I was particularly interested in the e-discovery information. That sounds like an incredibly painful process, and it sounds like Office 365 it really helps with that. So you know, at this point, we want to talk a little bit about you know, what do we do next? You know, how do we move forward if we're interested in Office 365? You know, what's important to do? You know, we personally here would recommend that you look at engaging with a Microsoft Cloud Services provider. Microsoft Cloud Services provider will have the most experience related to Office 365. They're going to, like Fred was talking about, they're going to have done a few of these and know how, you know, what the pitfalls are, how to get things set up right in the first place. We want to mention also here the Microsoft Customer Immersion Experience. If you're not familiar with this, this is a kind of a day-in-the-life presentation. Well, not even a presentation. It's actually hands-on. You get to dig into the applications and use them to do things you would do in a normal business day. And we can help you engage with the Microsoft Customer Immersion Experience. You can reach out to us on that. And of course, you want to understand your Office 365 needs and which Office plan is going to work best for you. Obviously, there's different levels, and you want to make sure that you're planning effectively for this change, that you're going to minimize your impact on your business, and you're going to have you know, a good migration. And then last step, of course, is making it happen. Again, I want to thank everyone. You know, if you had questions in the queue that weren't answered, we do have a couple of minutes here. Kim, is there anything that we might want to respond to?
You bet. Sue asked the question early on in the presentation here today. Describe some sample integration points to Dynamics.
Well, I'm going to assume that's Dynamics CRM, or is that Dynamics GP? I don't know if we can get clarification here.
Well, I'll definitely say there's a very tight integration with CRM, with Office 365. You know, hopefully those two applications are actually delivered through the same portal system, and it incorporates very tightly with that. So you get in Outlook, you can get addresses, locations, you know, maps and things to customers. You can you know, click an email or click and call out of CRM with Outlook or Skype for Business. With some of the other Dynamics products like AX, GP, NAV, things like that, the BI tools that are part of Office 365 can dashboard those applications for you and can give you kind of a quick look at those. And then you can use the analytics tools from Delve to get customer information and things like that in and out of the product. So they're very tightly integrated. Obviously, all the products from Microsoft, they talk well and play well with each other. So there's a lot of things in there. We can certainly get some more information out to whoever submitted that question.
Yes, definitely. Let's feel free to send us your information. I know we had just a brief second to answer that, but we can certainly explore that more in depth with you as we go. Thank you again, Fred. Yeah, thank you, Kim.
Yeah, that might be a good topic for a future webinar. Excellent.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Super. Well, that is all that we've got in